The French Revolution, a seismic event, it shook the foundations of Europe. It ignited the flames of change. From 1789 to 1799, France was a crucible of revolution. This wasn't just a transfer of power. It was a complete societal upheaval. The monarchy, once absolute, was overthrown. The people, long suppressed, seized control. The French Revolution stands as a stark reminder. Power resides with the people. It's a story of turmoil, but also of hope. It's a story that continues to resonate today. France in the late 18th century was a kingdom divided. The nation was grappling with deep social and economic disparities that were becoming increasingly untenable. Decades of lavish spending by the monarchy had left the treasury depleted. Extravagant parties, grandiose palaces, and a lifestyle of excess had drained the royal coffers, leaving the state in financial ruin. The burden of taxation fell heavily on the shoulders of the peasantry and the emerging middle class. These groups were already struggling to make ends meet, and the heavy taxes only exacerbated their hardships. Meanwhile, the aristocracy and the clergy enjoyed vast wealth and privilege. They lived in luxury, far removed from the daily struggles of the common people. They were exempt from most taxes, a privilege that allowed them to amass even more wealth, while the lower classes bore the financial burden of the state. This stark inequality fueled resentment and unrest. The common people began to see the system as inherently unfair and oppressive. Adding fuel to the fire were the ideas of the Enlightenment. These new philosophies challenged the traditional structures of power and authority. Thinkers like Jean-Jacques Rousseau and Montesquieu championed concepts like popular sovereignty and separation of powers. Their writings inspired many to envision a society based on equality and justice. These ideas found fertile ground among the disgruntled populace. People began to gather in salons and public spaces to discuss these revolutionary concepts.
The French people began to question the legitimacy of absolute monarchy. They started to believe that power should not be concentrated in the hands of a single ruler. They yearned for liberty and equality. The desire for a fairer, more just society became a powerful force that united people from all walks of life. The stage was set for revolution. The seeds of discontent had been sown, and the people were ready to fight for a new order.
The year 1789 dawned with a sense of foreboding. The air was thick with tension, and the streets of Paris buzzed with whispers of change. The people were restless, and the old order was on the verge of collapse. France was on the brink of economic collapse. The treasury was empty, and the common people were suffering. Bread lines grew longer, and hunger became a daily reality for many. King Louis XVI, a weak and indecisive ruler, seemed incapable of addressing the mounting crisis. His court was filled with intrigue and indecision, and his inability to act decisively only worsened the situation. In May 1789, Louis XVI convened the Estates General. This was a desperate attempt to address the financial crisis by seeking the counsel of the three estates: the clergy, the nobility, and the commoners. This was a representative assembly that had not met for over a century. The king hoped that by bringing together representatives from all three estates, he could find a solution to the kingdom's dire financial straits. The king hoped to raise taxes and quell the unrest. However, the commoners, who bore the brunt of the taxation, were unwilling to accept further burdens without significant reforms. However, the third estate, representing the commoners, had other ideas. They were determined to have a greater say in the governance of the country and to address the inequalities that plagued French society. They declared themselves the National Assembly. This bold move was a direct challenge to the king's authority and signaled the beginning of a new era in French politics. They vowed to create a new constitution for France. This constitution would aim to establish a fairer and more just society, reflecting the aspirations of the common people.
This act of defiance marked the beginning of the French Revolution. The storming of the Bastille soon followed, symbolizing the people's uprising against tyranny and oppression. The king, caught off guard, responded with a show of force. He underestimated the resolve of the revolutionaries and believed that military might could restore order. He amassed troops around Paris, further inflaming the situation. The presence of soldiers only heightened the tension, and the city became a powder keg ready to explode.
The people of Paris, already on edge, saw the king's actions as a threat. On July 14, 1789, a mob stormed the Bastille. The Bastille was a symbol of royal authority. It was a prison that held political prisoners. The capture of the Bastille was a turning point. It showed that the people were willing to fight for their rights. It ignited a wave of revolutionary fervor that swept across France.
Peasants rose up against their feudal lords. They burned down chateaux and destroyed feudal documents. The old order was crumbling.
Section 5. A king dethroned. The National Assembly, emboldened by the revolution's momentum, abolished feudalism. They adopted the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen. This document proclaimed the principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity.
Increasingly isolated and powerless, I was forced to accept these changes. However, I secretly plotted with foreign powers to crush the revolution.
In 1792, the monarchy was abolished and France was declared a republic. Louis XVI was put on trial for treason. He was found guilty and executed in January 1793. His death sent shockwaves across Europe. Section 6. The Terror grips France. The streets of Paris were filled with an air of dread and uncertainty. Citizens lived in constant fear, unsure of what the next day would bring. The Reign of Terror had a firm grip on the nation. The revolution, however, was far from over. The initial euphoria of overthrowing the monarchy had given way to a more complex and dangerous phase. The people of France were still rallying for their cause, but the atmosphere was charged with tension and unrest. France faced threats from both within and outside its borders. The revolutionary government had to contend with not only internal dissent, but also external forces that sought to crush the revolution. The soldiers were constantly preparing for battle, aware of the looming threats. Foreign armies, fearing the spread of revolution, invaded France. These invasions were not just military maneuvers, but also ideological battles. The monarchies of Europe were terrified that the revolutionary fervor would spread to their own lands, leading to widespread upheaval. Internally, counter-revolutionary uprisings threatened to derail the revolution. These uprisings were fueled by those who were disillusioned with the new order or who had lost their privileged positions. The internal conflict added another layer of complexity to the already volatile situation.
In response, the National Convention, the new governing body, established the Committee of Public Safety. This committee was tasked with protecting the revolution from its enemies, both foreign and domestic. It was a time of extreme measures and drastic decisions. Led by me, Maximilien Robespierre, the Committee of Public Safety launched the Reign of Terror. We believed that only through severe measures could we secure the revolution and ensure its survival. The stakes were incredibly high, and failure was not an option. From 1793 to 1794, tens of thousands of people deemed enemies of the revolution were executed. The guillotine became a symbol of this period, a tool of both justice and fear. Public executions were meant to serve as a deterrent to those who would oppose the revolution. Terror is necessary to preserve the revolution. It was a harsh, but in our view, essential truth. The revolution was under constant threat, and we believed that only through decisive and sometimes brutal action could we protect it.
However, the excesses of the terror eventually led to Robespierre's own downfall. The very methods he had championed turned against him. The atmosphere of fear and suspicion he had helped create ultimately consumed him. He was overthrown and executed in July 1794, marking the end of the terror. His death symbolized the end of one of the most tumultuous and bloody chapters in French history, a period that left an indelible mark on the nation. Section 7. The Rise of Napoleon. In the wake of the terror, France yearned for stability and strong leadership. A young general named Napoleon Bonaparte emerged as a national hero. Napoleon had risen through the ranks of the army during the revolution. He had proven himself a brilliant military strategist. In 1799, Napoleon seized power in a coup d'etat, ending the French Revolution. Napoleon established himself as first consul. He consolidated power and embarked on a series of military campaigns that would engulf much of Europe. Napoleon's reign marked a new chapter in French history. It also had a profound impact on the course of European affairs. Section 8. A legacy forged. The French Revolution, though tumultuous and violent, left an indelible mark on France and the world. It abolished feudalism and serfdom. It enshrined the principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity. The revolution also led to the rise of nationalism. It inspired people across Europe and beyond to fight for their own freedom and rights. Section 9. Liberty, Equality, Fraternity, the enduring slogan. The slogan, Liberty, Equality, Fraternity, became a rallying cry for revolutionaries and reformers worldwide. It encapsulated the core ideals of the French Revolution: liberty, freedom from oppression, arbitrary rule and tyranny; equality, equal rights and opportunities for all citizens, regardless of their social status; fraternity, a sense of brotherhood and solidarity among the French people. These principles continue to resonate today. They serve as a reminder of the power of the human spirit to strive for a more just and equitable world. Section 10. The French Revolution's global impact. The French Revolution had a profound impact on world history. It inspired revolutions and independence movements across the globe. The Haitian Revolution, for example, was directly inspired by the events in France. The revolution also led to the spread of Enlightenment ideas such as popular sovereignty and individual rights. It challenged the legitimacy of absolute monarchy and paved the way for more democratic forms of government. Section 11. Conclusion: a revolution remembered. The French Revolution was a pivotal event in human history. It was a time of great upheaval and bloodshed, but also of great hope and progress. The revolution's legacy continues to shape our world today. It reminds us that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can triumph over tyranny and oppression. It serves as a beacon of hope for those who strive for a more just and equitable world.